Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to go quickly through some facts about what happened in the Philippines recently. Haiyan, managing the unavoidable. There you go. So quickly, in 2009, we had, these are the typhoons that entered the Philippine area of responsibility. Let me just take out my notes. So we had over 20 in 2009. The big ones are the big yellow ones, and one is Ondoy, which basically flooded Metro Manila. And this is 2013. The big yellow one in the middle is Haiyan. Now, Haiyan by the numbers, it's the 24th of 36 typhoons. Now, you got to remember, in 2009, we only had around 20 typhoons that hit Metro Manila. Down here, that scary graph there, you have all of the data of recorded typhoons. We started recording, I think, in 1962. There's a big jump in 1994, but in 2012, we only had about 25. In 2013, we had 36. The speed of the winds in Haiyan were faster than the bullet train you guys took coming from Shanghai, which a lot of you guys took. On average, it hit 230 kilometers per hour at gusts of 10 minutes. Now, the Philippines, we like being number one. We like being number one in boxing. We like being number one in karaoke. Sadly, we're also number one when it comes to these scary storms. And here's just a quick look at different storms that have occurred in the last few years. We have Katrina, which is massive and incredibly devastating. And you have Haiyan. I think the key things to keep in mind is the size of Haiyan, which was 500 kilometers. I mean, that's huge. Sustained gust of 230 kilometers per hour. Again, 315 kilometers per hour is the maximum speed. And these are all of the storms before it. So yay, we're number one. And, well, it'll happen again and again and again. So here are more numbers about Haiyan. And you can look at 2009 and how it steadily escalates, the number of casualties lost. The reason why in Haiyan it's only 14 billion pesos in damages is because, well, it hit rural communities. And the sad fact is these are communities that really can't afford to lose what they lost. The others hit major commercial centers. Oops. So what can the Asia Society do? Well, obviously we're all here to help rebuild. Everybody in the Philippines and in the Asian side there is doing a lot of individual efforts. And, well, going back to what I said earlier, this will happen again and again and again. And not just in the Philippines, but all over the world there are areas that are just in danger. So I figured what we're doing in a small group of friends is how do we react quickly? So the minute we hear that there's a typhoon, 5 days coming, 2 days coming, we already have the processes in place. And I don't know, maybe it might be kind of simple, but maybe as a society we can come up with those processes already. And when something bad happens, we can all call each other and our friends and kind of just prepare and then react, not in hindsight. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what we've what's been going on. And I guess everybody wants to share what they've been doing.
Today, actually, it is exactly 30 days when the super typhoon struck the islands of the Philippines. And as you notice, it's really unimaginable in terms of the impact. And what the Asia 21 young leaders in the Philippines are doing now, they have greatly doing something. They have created movements and initiatives to really help conducted relief operations, wherein the collaboration of these young leaders have provided something beneficial to the survivors of the Typhoon Haiyan. However, the challenge for all of us is how do we create a sustainable approach in confronting these challenges, because we cannot really predict. This is how exactly a manifestation of the man versus nature. And as part of the government efforts, because I'm part of the national defense working with the military, 7 days before this super typhoon strike the islands of Visayas, we have prepared in terms of disaster preparedness. We have in place collection hubs, in place a lot of efforts to confront. However, we were not able to see the magnitude. So those in place efforts 7 days before the strike of Typhoon Yolanda was tormented. So there is a massive national effort in coordination with different organizations. Right now, there are more than 40 countries, government, non-government organizations, and other concerned individuals and entities are now in the Philippines doing the massive effort. But the challenge is on the long-term impact, wherein we need to have a reconstruction and rehabilitation. So these are the things that we need to see as the leaders, as the young leaders. There should be a strong collaboration, there should be sustainable programs, because we cannot really predict. In the next couple of years, we cannot predict how the negative impact of these typhoons could be in our countries. So I think what our friends are doing right now is to really collaborate, create a system to really approach these kind of challenges. And in our own efforts in the Philippines, your colleagues, your fellow Asia 21 leaders have provided initiatives and movements.
What I could say first about the devastation in the Philippines is that, as Iba showed you a while ago, we're very used to typhoons. We get a lot of them every year. But the storm surge is something new that we had to deal with. And many of those who perished during the typhoon were actually in evacuation centers. So the goal right now of the Philippines, we've already moved from relief to rebuilding, is to really look at how our cities are built. Of course, we are an island archipelago. We have a lot of coastal communities, and we'll be dealing with this a lot in the future. And Tacloban, which was almost completely devastated, has the opportunity to actually plan a city that can be resilient to natural calamities like this. And it would be very good if within our network we can create a community that can help plan these cities for the future, cities that can overcome these kinds of natural calamities, these new occurrences, or they may not be new, but they are coming in stronger than they were before. So it would be beneficial, not just for the Philippines, but for a lot of coastal countries, if we look at how our cities are built and how we can plan these cities for the future. So it's actually rebuilding these communities now in the Philippines. Many of the communities are already have already overcome the initial challenges of the calamity. But you know, it's really how to make a city more sustainable and prepared for future calamities.
I'd like to also, I mean, everybody here has been doing tremendous things, I'm sure, on their own, on their own capabilities and their own strengths and donating. But some people have approached me, and I think Deepak was mentioned because they have a victims, find victims SMS system, which they deployed in India. And I think this is something that can be replicated in other areas. NEAT is going to Panay with the United Sikh Alliance and bringing a team of doctors. And Kupernik, where's Eva? has, you can now donate solar lanterns and that goes straight to the community that's affected. I mean, it's like Amazon, but it doesn't go to you. It goes to people who are in need. And I mean, it's just incredible the kind of innovation that's just in this room right now. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot that can be done. Also, I'd like to thank those slides I didn't come up with. They were made by a scientist in the Philippines, Dr. C.P. David from Project NOAA. And I just wanted just to put that out. I don't think I put it in the slides. Thank you.
In the process of rehabilitation, we have identified some key elements. Example is the basic services, education, school buildings and shelters. These are the things that we need to restore in order to provide sustainable support to our fellow Filipinos. And during our environmental scanning in the area, we will be preparing for a really very huge and very expensive rehabilitation and reconstruction programs. And it will take a long while. However, with our discussion with several non-government organizations and international, because we have created a multinational community involving other nations. And the question is, how could you provide channel? Since I'm working with the government and these guys are working with the non-government organizations, I think we could utilize our networks, our efforts. I can be the lead man in the government effort to see if these projects, these programs could be translated into actions. Because at the end of the day, we need to see two items, okay? The accountability and of course the result in order to really address the issues. So those are the things that we are dealing with right now in the reconstruction phase in terms of the basic services, infrastructures pertaining to school buildings, shelters, livelihood programs, and of course, it will really take long, and it needs patience, it needs a systematic approach, and of course, a lot of motivations for the leaders to really grounded, to be really grounded, so that we could really address the impact on the ground.
Could just maybe in the next 10 minutes or so, could we have just a very quick brainstorming? Anybody who has an idea about how we can better facilitate this process going forward, how we can activate the Asia 21 network, how we can better use it, just go up to a microphone and we'll throw out some ideas. We'll collect those. We'll feed them into the conversation that goes on tomorrow as well.
Thanks. This is really unbelievable. I mean, it's both in the destruction of the typhoon, but also just how active the Asia 21 Philippine community has been in responding to it. But this conversation has, I think that for us as a group, there's a challenge of wanting to harness the power of this group without being so ambitious that we set a goal that maybe is too difficult to achieve. And I love the idea of kind of planning resilient cities, but I feel like that may be a bridge too far. Maybe not, I hope not. But one way of thinking about it is, well, what are the things that we can actually do that are very practical that could respond both to this situation but also lay the groundwork for harnessing the power of Asia 21 as a whole. And just two ideas sprung to mind for me. One is one thing that we can all do very easily and very quickly is fundraising. I mean, we have almost 1,000 people who are part of Asia 21, and every time there's a crisis like this, we all get scores of emails, and each one has a list of 10 different organizations who are receiving contributions. But if we had some kind of just slightly more formalized process where the Asia 20, if there's a disaster in any country, the Asia 21 community in that country or those members of it who are committed come together and they come up with a list of 2 organizations, one local organization and one international organization that they think is doing particularly great work. And then through the Asia Society, that list of 2 goes out to everybody, and there's a way for people to contribute online directly to those organizations, but there's a way of indicating that it's part of an Asia 21 general contribution. I think that would just be very easy and very useful, but it would, I think, give a sense of purpose. I think a lot of us have given, but everybody kind of gives in their own way, and nobody really knows who's being effective on the ground. So that would be one thing. And the second thing connected to what was just said is if we just did every year an email out to everybody saying we're putting together this standby capacity. And it's basically a list of what everybody had, or those who are interested has to contribute. And it may be that we have, of the entire community, there's 50 people who say, I have this specific skill. Like maybe Adam, it's that I can contribute satellite maps. And somebody else says, well, I can help, Wenchi says, I can help coordinating outreach to the State Department. Just kind of very practical skills. And we updated that every year, and we just had a list. And that every year, again, the fellows in the Asia 21 leaders in the country, we'd say, well, here's this list of things. And you tell us, do you know, are there any organizations for whom these specific skills would be useful, or through the government? And I think this, again, it would be kind of hit and miss, but if every year we just had this list, and every time there was a crisis, we could make focused contributions and then send this list out for the benefit of the fellows, I think potentially we could do something, and it could be systematic and ongoing.
Thanks. I just want to say, first of all, my thoughts are with friends in the Philippines. I had to do some work there, and it's really enormously severe. And as I look to the future, I wanted to share an idea from a project a friend of mine has done in Canada. He led a climate change adaptation project, and he managed to get an insurance company to pay $1 million for the project, intact insurance. And I had the chance to speak to the CEO and ask, why are you guys paying for this project, since all insurance companies in Canada will benefit from the project findings? And he said, well, we want the industry as a whole to think more about climate adaptation in general, but in our case in particular, we also believe we're going to save money through the project findings. And the methodology was really quite simple. He got together 30 experts from a range of different industries, as well as vulnerable populations. In Canada would be First Nations that are particularly vulnerable to climate change, so a broad cross-section of experts. And he asked them to show up for a 2-day event where they reported only their conclusions. He said, we don't want to hear about your methodology and how you got there. You're invited here because you're already experts. Just tell us what are the most significant 5 adaptation, or what are the most significant changes that could affect your sector because of climate change? And then what are some practical and cost-effective measures in response to that? So someone stood up from agriculture, someone stood up from the water sector, someone from electricity, and so on. And then as a group, we prioritized what the biggest issues were. And then they drilled down with that money and started to think about how to further adaptation measures. So now my friend has asked me to find out what's happening in Asia in the area of climate adaptation. I recognize that there's a debate and cause and effect questions around, can you say this particular event is caused by climate change? I'm not among the climate skeptics, but I know there still are some. But in any case, the exercise of going through thinking about sensitivities and precipitation and temperature that may impact in drought in one place, may cause landslides in another, is a useful exercise no matter what, and it provides for more resilience on the part of communities. So one thing that I would offer is, I would love if any of you is aware of particular sort of national level adaptation projects that are already taking place in your country. Please tell me, and I can consolidate that into a very simple summary of what's out there. And then in return, I'm also very happy to share the report from this Canadian project. Some of it may have to be adapted in a different sense to other countries, but I think it already has had a lot of resonance in the US. My friend went down to the Pentagon. They were very interested in what's happening, what the project did and how it went about it. And I think particularly 2 things about it, again, were helpful. One was that it was just in a very efficient way to identify issues. And you may say, well, it's not entirely scientific just to have people come with show up with their conclusions. But they actually, as they've drilled down on those, they found there's actually, a high degree of I don't want to say accuracy, but relevance to what they found. And the second thing is, again, an insurance company was willing to pay for this. So there may well be insurance companies elsewhere in Asia that will be willing to fund similar projects. So please do share with me, and I'm happy to consolidate that and then also in turn pass along the Canadian project.
Just to respond to a quick response regarding sharing of resources, as per the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework for Climate Change, the organization that deals with all this climate change and climate issues, you have a lot of resources over there, and for countries that are members of that, what happens is each country must draft or must have a national adaptation plan of action. It's called NEPA, and every country has that. So, but I'm not sure whether the UNFCCC website has all the information. But if you look into, say, Philippines or any of these East Asian countries, you have to go to the focal agencies for for climate change, and most of them happen to be the environment protection agencies and so on. So all these countries do have, in fact, every country on earth has a national plan of adaptation here. So this is just the first response. I mean, where you can quickly, after the session, you can check this out here. Thank you.